right, here's your resistance exercise for the lumbar spine, starting with our planks. So when you go to a low plank, you're gonna make sure that your patient is contracting their transverse abdominis, pulling their low back up towards the ceiling. We don't want them holding even kind of a flat back position, but here, want the nice kind of posteriorly tilted, contracted abdominal brace. So that's your static. You can do a saw without the physio ball, which is up and back. You can do this saw motion on the physio ball. This is going to be like so, forward and back. You can do with a lower extremity kick. They're going to do the row. They can do an extension kick. They can do an abduction kick. They can do a march right there. A lower extremity. For the upper extremity, could be a row where they're pulling a band or a weight coming up. An exercise where you do rotations with breaths. We're going to come over to the station for this one. So for this exercise, we're going to loop the band through here, so that it creates a loop. So if you have these kind of CLX bands, you can do it this way, or you can use a super band, or you just tie a regular band together to make a circle of a band. See there? It's all one band. Attach it here. So to do this exercise correctly for a rotation plank, you're gonna put it around one shoulder, then you're gonna rotate all the way, keep it above the pelvis, all the way around, so you're facing in the same way you started. So now what the band is trying to do is pull me like this, and I have to hold my plank against it. Let's see if I come backwards a little, be able to see. And then what you want to do is count breaths. Deep breath in, try to expand your ribcage. Breathe out. So you're holding that plank. Deep breath in, try to expand your ribcage. Breathe out, let it go. And then of course you'd have to do the other side. So you come out. And then the patient will keep turning, put their other arm in. Keep turning, all the way 360, and then they would do their plank exercise now this way. Deep breath in, expand the rib cage, breathe out. Deep breath in, expand the rib cage, and then breathe out. And you would count breaths for your repetitions on that one. And then you could do Bosu planks, in which you would have your legs or your upper extremity on the Bosu. Such as a plank in this position, and or plank in this position, and or plank in this position. Okay. And then adding a weight would just be your regular low plank with a weight plate or a dumbbell on their back. Usually a weight plate so it's flat. You can do this plank progression with a physio ball against the wall. So you want to make sure that they have their core contracted, they're not sinking in, they're using their core, so you can do it static. You can do your saw or plus sign, in and out. They could add their kicks here, they could do hip extension, hip abduction, do their marches in that position on the wall. It's a good way if they're not able to tolerate going all the way down to the floor. Then we have some exercise at the TRX that are similar, kind of core oriented exercises. So we have the hold, which again, you're gonna go into that nice plank position, using your core, holding that transverse abdominis contraction, holding that posterior pelvic tilt, whichever one they're doing, in this isometric position for isometric dosage. Then you can do it as a Superman where they're going forward. So they're maintaining, they're not letting their sag, they're not reaching forward like this. So the cue is kind of like let their hips and their shoulders drop at the same pace and then come back up. And then they can do a mountain climber position. So again, going back makes it a little bit harder. They're gonna hold that core nice and tight, and then they can do mountain climber exercise here. They can do for speed, where they're trying to maintain that stability in their spine while they're basically running, or they can do it in a fold and a switch. And you can progress based on patient's functional need. Next, we're gonna go to side planks. So the side plank progression is gonna be starting from their elbow and their knees, and they're gonna go up. And then you could either progress from here by keeping them on their elbow and bringing their legs straight, or you can keep them on their knees and they go to their hand. And then obviously together be the next one. Feet staggered. So kind of one foot in front of the other. And then feet stacked with the opposite, with the top leg moving. So either stacked and top leg goes up, or you're gonna come back this way, and then they're gonna do a clamshell. You can put their elbow on something unstable. So when they're here, they can put their elbow on an Airex or a Bosu and lift up. And lastly, they can also have a weight plate right here on their hip, or if you have the ability to tie the band, kind of hold their band, they'll kind of hold the band with their hand. It's a little bit challenging for some patients to understand this motion, but the idea is that they're going to resist the side plank using the band, holding it with that bottom hand. It's a little bit challenging, so it's usually better to put a weight on top. Challenging to keep that nice symmetry while holding it. Next one is quadruped. So again, the goal with these quadruped exercises, kind of like we said with plank, is to get their core engaged. They should have a nice flat back because they've sucked in their core and they've held their transverse abdominis. The goal isn't to just hang out in this position, however gravity pulls them, and then just go back and forth. They should be holding that transverse abdominis, doing dynamic stabilization, one part stable, one part moving. Part that's stable is their lumbar spine, part that's moving is their extremities. So you're gonna start with just quadruped, just upper arm, then you're gonna go stabilize this lower extremity, then you're gonna do upper and lower at the same time. Then you can have resistance, either in their hands or resistance on the posterior pelvic tilt, like we just said. This one is a little bit more manageable to do with a band. So you're gonna have your hands through there. You want a pretty heavy resistance band, like this gold. Try to keep it nice and low so it doesn't pop up on them. And you see I gotta hold that nice and tight as I reach my legs. So that's quadruped. Williams flexion is going to start in hook line with a posterior pelvic tilt. So you're going to start with just your posterior pelvic tilt. Just flatten the back against the floor, against the table that they're on. They're going to progress from that to the march, doing a single march. So again, the goal of these exercises, not lifting the legs, not the hip flexion. The goal is stabilize and being able to move with this stabilize. So you're gonna do a march, then it's gonna be a heel slide. And I would use my little slider here. Put their foot on the slider. Pelvic tilt, and then slide in and out while holding that pelvic tilt. Then they're gonna do their straight leg raise. Yes, straight leg raise. Hold the core tight. And as they go down, the hard part is, as they go down, their back's gonna wanna arch away from the floor. They gotta really use their core to keep their back on the floor as much as it is when their leg is up as it's going down. And then you can make all those doubles. Then you're gonna go back to double knee march. Then you're gonna go back to double heel slide. Then you're gonna go back to core and straight leg raise. Very difficult to keep your low back flat while lifting your legs at the same time. You can progress this you can do this same total progression again, just on the foam roller. So when you do it on the foam roller, they're gonna have their hips and their head supported. You don't want their head hanging off. You don't want their so far down that their butt is hanging off. And then you're gonna do all those same progressions. Posterior pelvic tilt here, posterior pelvic tilt with the march, with the heel slide, with the straight leg raise. Obviously you can't do double because you're gonna fall off, but you know, that would be like a goal for like an Olympic athlete. And then with this one, you can also progress and regress by using the hands. So using a lot of your hand contact, minimal hand contact, just your elbows. So then coming up, trying to stabilize in a position like this, where you're just using your core and trying to use your core to hold your body on the foam roller. And then you can progress all of these either on the foam roller or off the foam roller, as we're doing a lot of the leg exercise by adding some arm motion, like pulling a band or have some weights in their hand and doing some other arm motion at the same time that they're doing their any of these arm exercises that we've done for shoulder, while they're doing their lower extremity exercise while keeping the core stable. Next one's flutter kicks and scissor kicks. So flutter kicks are this way, and scissor kicks are this way. So just think about scissor, you're gonna kind of cut, you gotta go in and out this way to cut, versus flutter is kind of up and down. Next, we're gonna do some of the exercise in standing. Using the band, using the upper extremity to initiate some core activity. Pull down with a march. So first one is just gonna be a pull down. Okay, so again here, it's not for the shoulders, not for the scap, it's for getting the core. So they should feel their core engaged, they should have their chest up, don't let their body fall forward, trying to resist that motion. can progress by having to pull down and then add a march, pull down, march, back up. You can do some rows here, same thing. Doing our rows. We have our shoulder flexion. The harder one. So again, you want to make sure they focus on that core. Thumbs towards the ceiling, and they're pulling up. So if they go up, we shouldn't see their hips shoot forward. That's the tall tale sign they're not using their core. You need to use their core, engage that transverse abdominis, and then lift. Use the transverse abdominis and lift. That's your pull down with march, rolls, shoulder flexion. Next is Palloff press. It's a good way to progress patients who need an extension bias. So first, they can do it as an isometric. So they're gonna hold the band. They're gonna walk out and they're isometric. Again, if they hold it close to their body, that makes it easier. That's why we teach lifting mechanics. You're lifting something heavy, you hold it close to your body, makes it easy. So they wanna pull this band so it's right in the middle of their sternum. Little bend, athletic stance, a little bend in their knees, a little athletic stance, core stable, and then hold it. That'll be isometric. They could progress to this. They could progress to an isometric out here. Then they could do in and out, which is they're going through the range, keeping that core stable, keeping it right in line with their sternum. Next would be as with a side step. So they're gonna hold there, and then they're gonna step in and out, and you could make it even harder with a band around their legs. If you wanted to, of course, all these exercises you're gonna do bilateral, so you have them turn and face the other way with a hip drive or a reverse lunge. So they could do it here, and then they have to drive up, up. They could do it into a lunge. Gonna go reverse lunge, up, reverse lunge. Ooh, lost my balance. Reverse lunge, up, reverse lunge, up. Again, holding that core the whole time. Next one is the ABCs on the stability ball. So you can do this standing and then progress to in the prone position. So they're gonna be in their plank position, push, and then they do A, B, and C, and then rest. Or you can have them go all the way. You wanna do it really for endurance, have them go all the way A to Z, and they can do that same progression on the floor in a prone plank position. Next for the squats. So you can do your squat exercise here on the wall. So again, the goal is to get rid of the small in their back, get rid of that little lumbar lordosis, that little lumbar extension by pushing their low back into the wall. When they do this, you'll see a lot of times patients will say push it low back into the wall, and they do this. So just like flexing, and they're collapsing at their thoracic spine. So sometimes I need to cue them, keep your pelvis on the wall, keep your shoulder blades on the wall, and now try to push your low back towards the wall. Hold down while you go up and down into your wall. Squat. Really get their glute and their core at the same time. Then you can add weight. They can hold what's type of weight. So your goblet squat is going to be with the weight in front, going into that squat. Again, keeping that core, push the low back, and keep that squat while they keep their core engaged. Will be your goblet squat. It's a little way to get more of their core by holding the weight in front versus putting on their back. Very good exercise for the back, for the lumbar extensors, for your hamstrings, just for your lifting mechanics, weightlifters, etc. It's a deadlift position. So you're going to use a bar, typically heavy. Typically has to have some weight on there. I'll show you from this angle so you're able to see. So you want the bar to stay close to the body. You're going to let it travel down as far as you can, come up, extend through the pelvis. You're going to go down, flat back, come up, push through your pelvis, right? So when they come to the top, it's not a lumbar extension, it's a hip extension. They got to push with their glute max and push the bar forward with their butt, trying to get this motion here, this posterior pelvic tilt at the end, versus an anterior pelvic tilt with a lumbar extension. So they're gonna engage their core and keep that as they come down, as they come back up, squeeze their butt and push through. Okay, mountain climbers we saw on the TRX. You can also do them in prone. Box lift, so you can get one of these boxes that opens like this. You can put some weights in there. You can just get a milk crate. And again, you're gonna do that same deadlift position. That's why we teach, this is why we like the deadlift exercise for these patients. It works their hamstring and their lumbar extensors coming up, as well as their glute. So they're gonna go down, keeping their chest relatively up, not bending over. If they double over, then their glutes don't engage. So we want that kind of nice squat, chest up, and they're gonna pull it up. Go down and lift it up. And same thing as we talked with the deadlift, as they come to the top, squeeze the butt muscles, push the pelvis forward. Dead bug progression is another progression for flexion bias. Come back to our floor setup. So with dead bug, you can start your dead bug exercise here in hook lying. Again, getting that transverse abdominis to press the low back into the floor. The true dead bug position is going to be 90 degrees shoulder flexion, 90 degrees hip flexion, and then posterior pelvic tilt, and hold that position. You can wrap a band around their knees or around their foot and have them do resisted abduction or kind of external rotation. At that point, they can do up and down. Or they can do just their foot in and out as well. If they want to do a rotation of their hip, then obviously you can do like a march in this position. You can do alternating. They could do kick their legs so they don't actually touch the ground. You can do it with a physio ball. So sometimes we'll start this exercise, like I said, in this position with the physio ball on their belly, and they're gonna push. They're gonna keep their arms straight, push the ball into their knees, into their thighs, contracting their core as well as their lats. Not just a lat exercise, but make sure they're using their core as they push down. Then you can have them push and release, push, release. They can do push just with the leg. I'm pushing, holding the pressure while I do my leg. Then they could do the same alternating, push, push. Okay, and they could do the same. They could keep going the same way and don't put their leg down or their arm down, so they have to hold that core the whole time. A ton of variations in that position using the physio ball. You can do these dead bug progressions with a weighted bar and the ball. So they're gonna bring both together and then both away. And again, the goal is not, when they get to this position, not to let their lumbar spine extend. Don't let them get that space between the low back and the floor. Try to keep their core tight as they go in. And then they can do one and not the other. They can do it as a rotation, so they can do both together this way. And again, they can do the same thing where they isolate one. They can isolate the uppers. You can do lumbar rotation here, a lower trunk rotation here, a LTR, or you can do it as an internal, external, where you kind of swivel the knees instead of rolling. We can also do the same setup with the ball, using a band attached to a wall instead of a weighted bar. Let's bring it around this way. So this way, again, they're gonna engage their core. They're gonna pull down and come in at the same time, and then both extend. Okay, you wanna make sure they have a lot of tension on the band the whole time. They can do isolate, where they hold the band down, which engages their core, and just roll. They can hold their knees at 90 and do just their arms. And they could also make this a rotation as well. Rotate just their legs. Hold that stable. They can hold their legs, rotate just the band. They pull down into the side, or they could do opposites. Okay. All your dead bug variations there. You can do your dead bug variations seated as well. So you can do these seated on a physio ball. They could be seated in a chair to start, maybe seated in a chair to start, progress by seated on an Aerex, progress to seated on a physio ball. And they can do their dead bug exercise here. Hold their arms and just isometric core here. Then they could do just their alternating leg, just their alternating arm, and then they could do the alternating arm and leg, add some weights, add different variations in the arms while they're doing it. They could do these, they could do Ys, any upper extremity while they're doing their lowers, seated on an unstable surface, will get their core. Could be a good option for certain patients. Next one is going to be chops and lifts at the with a TheraBand station. So for your chop, you're gonna have the band up high. They're gonna pull down. Maybe have them stagger one way or the other based on their position or their motion. If they're a baseball player, we're gonna typically have their other foot back as they come across. You want their body to stay straight as they pull. Unless we're going for a twist, then you're going for a full body chop, which you would do in the open position. If they're going for a stable, where they're not moving, you could do closed or open. All right, and then obviously doing the other way. And then the lift would be the same thing, just flip the band to the bottom and go up, all the same ideas. So you're gonna go open, try not to let them move, keep their trunk stable, or they could do it here, twist and reach up, come down, twist and reach up. And again, you could do it closed. If you're gonna stable, we don't want this flex, rotated position where they're really kind of awkwardly pushing through their pelvis. In a locked position with too much weight. Unless for some reason that's exactly what they have to do. Supermans. We're gonna come back to our floor setup for Superman is kind of like our opposite of dead bug. So you're here, they can just do their isometric and prone, where they're just contracting their core. They can contract the core and do upper, contract the core, do upper, contract the core, do lower, contract the core, do lower, contract and do opposite, and finally contract and do both. We know that our transverse abdominis works in flexion and extension. So those are your Supermans. Next we have pikes. Okay, so pike, also like a plank, you can do it from your elbows and progress by going to your hands. So a pike is bringing your butt in the air in that plank position. Then you could do it from your hands. You're gonna go to a push-up or high plank and then come up. You can also do this with a physio ball. Physio ball will be at the legs. And then roll it up. There. Bridge progression is a great progression for the low back, which we saw on hip. V-ups and V-up passes. So your V-up. So when you do these V-ups, it's not a sit-up, which I'm gonna demonstrate slowly, where you're rounding your back. We don't want lumbar and thoracic extension. What we want is your thoracic as extended or as neutral as possible. So you can do your V-up here. So your total V-ups will be legs and arms, where you're trying to lift from your chest, not curl the chest. All right, toes, compared to toe touches, which are here. And then again, you're not curling, you're reaching up. So we avoid that maximal flexion position in the spine. You can do it as a V-up pass. So we'll be with a physio ball, eventually progressing to like a weighted ball. So you're gonna start in this position and up and back, up and back. That's a V-up pass. You can do it with your knees bent. So they're gonna come this way, make it a little bit easier. And or you can make it easier, or this could be a isometric kind of hold progression if you make them hold this position for a couple seconds and really try to maintain that and then come and get it. So you can use that as a regression or progression to bend their knees. I went a little bit out of order with the toe touches. A core row is from a flex position. Again, you're trying to keep that thoracic extension. That's the difference between doing these and a curl up or doing these and a sit up. Is as you come up, you're trying to maintain neutral spine as much as you can. And it's called a row because you kind of, the idea is like you're on a boat and you're trying to row yourself up. So that's a core row. Touches, isometric sit hold position. So we're gonna start with isometric. So again, we want this extended position. We don't want them to hold their spine in a collapsed position. Extended position, they're gonna hold with their arms and legs up. They can progress, they can start with an easy, they can regress, start with the easier position where they just lift the legs. Or maybe give them one hand. Or maybe they just have to lift one leg and just the other leg, and then progress to two, then progress to without upper support and hold here. They can progress also by how much they hold. So sometimes we have them start with their elbows and just start here. Then they go to their hands. Then they go to lifting one leg, like we said, no upper extremity support. getting eventually to hold here. And that's your lumbar resistance exercises.